Wednesday brought the discovery that made me genuinely angry. Emma came home from school upset, having overheard Brenda talking to another parent about dangerous neighborhood influences and inappropriate role models for community children. The racial undertones weren't subtle, and the implications for my custody situation were crystal clear. That evening, I hired Beth Morrison, a retired police detective who specialized in harassment investigations. For $200 a day, I could have professional documentation of Brenda's stalking behavior, plus someone with law enforcement experience to testify about escalation patterns and threat assessment. The sabotage attempts intensified throughout the week. Someone poured what looked like battery acid on my concrete trash can. It left a small stain, but no structural damage. Anonymous complaints flooded the city about everything from my lawn height to my electrical work permits. Fake negative reviews appeared on my business Google listing faster than I could flag them for removal. But the most shocking discovery came Friday evening. Tyler was working on his bike in the driveway when he found something unusual attached to my work truck's undercarriage, a small black device with blinking lights and magnetic mounting. "Dad," he called out, his voice tight with concern. "What's this thing stuck under your truck?" "GPS tracker. Professional grade. Probably cost $300. Definitely illegal when placed without consent." I photographed it from every angle before carefully removing it and driving straight to the police station. Officer Derek Martinez took the report with the weary expression of someone who'd seen this type of escalation before. "Mr. Holloway, this moves beyond neighborhood disputes into criminal territory. Unauthorized surveillance, stalking, harassment. We're building a case file that could result in serious charges." The insurance fraud angle developed simultaneously. Brenda had filed a $3,200 claim for road hazard damage, claiming her collision occurred on a city street rather than my property. The problem: my Ring camera footage clearly showed deliberate targeting of my trash can from multiple angles over several weeks. When State Farm's investigator called for an interview, I was ready with a complete evidence package: 53 documented collision attempts, witness statements, video compilation, and professional assessment of the damage patterns. The investigator's reaction was immediate and decisive. "Ma'am, this isn't road hazard damage. This is intentional property destruction with an expensive vehicle. We're denying the claim and referring the case to our fraud unit for criminal investigation." The community pressure was building like steam in a pressure cooker. Our Facebook group had grown to 94 members, sharing increasingly outrageous stories of Brenda's behavior. Mrs. Patterson reported harassment about her rose bushes. The Johnsons on Oak Street had received violation notices for children's sidewalk chalk art. Even Gerald Thornfield was privately distancing himself from her actions. Saturday morning brought collision attempt 57, this time resulting in a completely detached bumper that Brenda had to retrieve from my driveway. The sight of her crawling around in her business attire, gathering plastic fragments while neighbors watched from windows, would have been hilarious if it wasn't so pathetic. The opposition mapping revealed interesting patterns. Brenda's hardcore supporters were exclusively long-term homeowners who'd benefited from selective rule enforcement. The fence-sitters were mostly newer residents afraid of property value impacts or board retaliation. Everyone else was ready to see some accountability. Media preparation took 3 days of careful planning. Channel 7's investigative unit specialized in municipal corruption stories, and reporter Sarah Kim had covered similar HOA scandals across the metro area. The press kit included professional timeline graphics, expert legal opinions, and 12 minutes of edited video showing Brenda's escalating collision attempts. The social media campaign exploded faster than I'd anticipated. The Pinewood Gardens Transparency Facebook group gained 67 members in 4 days, with neighbors sharing their own stories of selective enforcement, harassment, and financial irregularities. Someone posted a time-lapse video of Brenda's morning routine set to circus music that went viral throughout the suburban community network. Meanwhile, my concrete trash can continued serving as both evidence and entertainment. Thursday morning brought collision attempt number 53, resulting in a headlight housing that now dangled like a broken tooth. The neighborhood kids had started gathering at bus stops early just to witness the daily demolition derby. Emma reported that her friends at school were calling our house the place with the indestructible trash can. Tyler had started charging classmates 50 cents each to see the video compilation on his phone. The story was spreading beyond our community faster than gossip at a church potluck by Sunday evening. Everything was coordinated. Board meeting scheduled for Tuesday night. Media interviews arranged for Wednesday morning. Criminal complaints prepared for Thursday filing. 118 residents committed to attending the confrontation, with 17 planning to speak during public comment. The coalition was built. The evidence was bulletproof, and Brenda had no idea what was coming. Time to bring down the hammer. The weekend before our planned board meeting ambush, Brenda went completely off the rails. Desperation has a particular smell, like burnt coffee and panic sweat, and it was practically radiating from her every move. She'd obviously sensed the walls closing in because her harassment campaign escalated from annoying to potentially criminal faster than her escalade could hit my concrete fortress. Saturday night, I was jolted awake by the hiss of spray paint. Through my bedroom window, I could see a dark figure crouched beside my trash can, illuminated by the motion sensor lights. By the time I grabbed my phone and stumbled outside, they were gone, leaving behind amateur graffiti that spelled "MOVE" in bright orange letters across the concrete surface. The beautiful thing about spray paint on concrete, it pressure washes off in about 30 seconds. The beautiful thing about security cameras, they record everything in high definition, including license plate numbers of pearl white Escalades parked 3 houses down during the incident. Monday brought a new level of harassment. An anonymous complaint to the gas company claimed I'd been conducting suspicious excavation activities that might damage underground lines. The utility inspector who showed up was apologetic but thorough, spending 2 hours with detection equipment before confirming what I already knew. No digging, no violations, no problems. Honestly, he told me, loading his gear back into the truck, whoever called this in either has serious vision problems or serious psychological problems. There's no excavation anywhere on your property. The development that revealed Brenda's true desperation came Tuesday morning. Jim Torres found me at the hardware store, his weathered face grim with concern. "Marcus, she hired a private security company to watch your house. Riverside Security. I know the owner's cousin. $200 a day for surveillance on a trash can dispute. The woman's lost her damn mind." But Brenda's surveillance worked both ways. My upgraded security system had captured her drive-by inspections, her midnight photography sessions, and her increasingly erratic behavior patterns. The woman was unraveling faster than a cheap extension cord, and every moment was being documented for posterity. The opposition mapping revealed interesting patterns. Brenda's hardcore supporters were exclusively long-term homeowners who'd benefited from selective rule enforcement. The fence-sitters were mostly newer residents afraid of property value impacts or board retaliation. Everyone else was ready to see some accountability. Media preparation took 3 days of careful planning. Channel 7's investigative unit specialized in municipal corruption stories, and reporter Sarah Kim had covered similar HOA scandals across the metro area. The press kit included professional timeline graphics, expert legal opinions, and 12 minutes of edited video showing Brenda's escalating collision attempts. The social media campaign exploded faster than I'd anticipated. The Pinewood Gardens Transparency Facebook group gained 67 members in 4 days, with neighbors sharing their own stories of selective enforcement, harassment, and financial irregularities. Someone posted a time-lapse video of Brenda's morning routine set to circus music that went viral throughout the suburban community network. Meanwhile, my concrete trash can continued serving as both evidence and entertainment. Thursday morning brought collision attempt number 53, resulting in a headlight housing that now dangled like a broken tooth. The neighborhood kids had started gathering at bus stops early just to witness the daily demolition derby. Emma reported that her friends at school were calling our house the place with the indestructible trash can. Tyler had started charging classmates 50 cents each to see the video compilation on his phone. The story was spreading beyond our community faster than gossip at a church potluck by Sunday evening. Everything was coordinated. Board meeting scheduled for Tuesday night. Media interviews arranged for Wednesday morning. Criminal complaints prepared for Thursday filing. 118 residents committed to attending the confrontation, with 17 planning to speak during public comment. The coalition was built. The evidence was bulletproof, and Brenda had no idea what was coming. Time to bring down the hammer. The weekend before our planned board meeting ambush, Brenda went completely off the rails. Desperation has a particular smell, like burnt coffee and panic sweat, and it was practically radiating from her every move. She'd obviously sensed the walls closing in because her harassment campaign escalated from annoying to potentially criminal faster than her escalade could hit my concrete fortress. Saturday night, I was jolted awake by the hiss of spray paint. Through my bedroom window, I could see a dark figure crouched beside my trash can, illuminated by the motion sensor lights. By the time I grabbed my phone and stumbled outside, they were gone, leaving behind amateur graffiti that spelled "move" in bright orange letters across the concrete surface. The beautiful thing about spray paint on concrete, it pressure washes off in about 30 seconds. The beautiful thing about security cameras, they record everything in high definition, including license plate numbers of pearl white Escalades parked 3 houses down during the incident. Monday brought a new level of harassment. An anonymous complaint to the gas company claimed I'd been conducting suspicious excavation activities that might damage underground lines. The utility inspector who showed up was apologetic but thorough, spending 2 hours with detection equipment before confirming what I already knew. No digging, no violations, no problems. Honestly, he told me, loading his gear back into the truck, whoever called this in either has serious vision problems or serious psychological problems. There's no excavation anywhere on your property. The development that revealed Brenda's true desperation came Tuesday morning. Jim Torres found me at the hardware store, his weathered face grim with concern. "Marcus, she hired a private security company to watch your house. Riverside Security. I know the owner's cousin. $200 a day for surveillance on a trash can dispute." The woman's lost her damn mind. But Brenda's surveillance worked both ways. My upgraded security system had captured her drive-by inspections, her midnight photography sessions, and her increasingly erratic behavior patterns. The woman was unraveling faster than a cheap extension cord, and every moment was being documented for posterity. Patricia whistled low when she saw the financial analysis. I knew something felt wrong about those contracts, but I never imagined it was this systematic. Every time I questioned the expenses, Brenda had these detailed justifications ready, like she'd rehearsed them. Dale examined the vehicle damage photos with professional interest. "That bumper is going to cost at least $2,000 to fix properly. The alignment issues alone will consume tires like crazy. Your concrete can's turning her SUV into a very expensive life lesson." We spent the next hour organizing our multi-pronged attack strategy. Jim would monitor Brenda's activities and document any retaliation attempts. Mrs. Olivia would coordinate the door-to-door campaign to gather neighbor support. Patricia would work the inside game, building board member consensus for a financial audit. Dale would serve as our technical consultant on any construction-related evidence. The legal strategy required delicate coordination. Amanda Sterling had confirmed we had solid cases for harassment, financial fraud, and board misconduct, but timing would be crucial. File too early, and Brenda might destroy evidence. Wait too long, and she could complete whatever cover-up she was surely planning. That I'd learned something important from 22 years of electrical troubleshooting. Complex problems require layered solutions. Fighting HOA overreach with just property rights arguments is like trying to fix a short circuit by replacing one fuse. You need to address the whole system. Our approach would hit from 4 directions simultaneously: legal pressure through criminal complaints and civil lawsuits, social pressure through community organizing and petition drives, political pressure through media attention and municipal oversight, financial pressure through audit demands and contract cancellations. The community organizing phase started Wednesday morning. Armed with professional presentation materials and irrefutable documentation, I began visiting every house in Pinewood Gardens. The response was overwhelming. 89 signatures supporting property rights, 34 demanding immediate financial audits, and 12 volunteering for testimony at the upcoming board meeting. Mrs. Rodriguez from Maple Street nearly slammed her door before I could explain the situation. 5 minutes later, she was furiously signing the petition and muttering Spanish phrases that probably weren't complimentary to Brenda's character. "That woman tried to fine me for having my garbage can out 15 minutes early," she fumed. 15 minutes. Like the garbage police were timing us with stopwatches. But the timeline revealed something even more damning. My first polite conversation with Brenda about the trash can incidents, September 15th. First questioning of maintenance budget at the monthly board meeting, September 3rd. She'd started her harassment campaign exactly 12 days after I'd innocently asked why we were spending so much on basic repairs and why concrete trash hadn't just been blocking her morning power walk. It had been protecting evidence of systematic theft from 127 homeowners. The scope of potential violations made my head spin. Civil liability for financial mismanagement, criminal exposure for fraud, automatic removal from the board upon proven conflict of interest. This wasn't just about property rights anymore. It was about corruption, embezzlement, and a woman desperate enough to destroy evidence that she'd waged psychological warfare against anyone who threatened her scheme. That I printed everything, made digital copies on 3 separate cloud services, and immediately emailed the complete file to attorney Amanda Sterling with a note. Urgent review requested, criminal implications possible. The power dynamic had just shifted completely. Brenda thought she was fighting some divorced electrician over trash can placement. What she was actually facing was exposure of a fraud scheme that could land her in federal prison and bankrupt her family. Tuesday morning, I watched from my kitchen window as she made her usual collision attempt with my concrete fortress. Her Escalade now showed over $1,200 in accumulated damage, while my trash can sat there like an immovable monument to her stupidity. But for the first time since this whole mess started, I wasn't thinking about trash cans or HOA bylaws or morning demolition derbies. I was thinking about justice, community protection, and the sweet satisfaction of watching a bully discover that their victims sometimes bite back harder than expected. The war was about to begin in earnest. Tuesday evening, my garage transformed from a weekend workshop into a war room that would have made Pentagon strategists proud. I'd cleared out the workbenches, set up folding tables, and arranged 5 mismatched chairs in a circle around the evidence board I'd constructed using construction paper and red string like something from a crime thriller. The core team assembled by 7 p.m. sharp. Mrs. Olivia arrived first, clutching a thermos of jasmine tea and looking nervously determined. Jim Torres showed up still wearing his maintenance uniform, tool belt jangling with each step. Patricia Lopez brought a stack of HOA financial documents she'd borrowed from the board files. Dale Kowalski rolled in last, carrying a box of donuts and grinning like we were planning a surprise party instead of exposing municipal corruption. "All right," I said, taping the final timeline chart to the garage wall. "Here's what we're dealing with." The evidence layout resembled something from a federal investigation. $23,000 in questionable contracts, 7 separate conflict of interest violations, 47 documented harassment incidents, and 1 increasingly damaged Escalade serving as rolling proof of Brenda's deteriorating mental state. Sunday night research sessions used to be for helping Emma with her history papers or Tyler with algebra homework. This particular evening, I was deep in the city's public contract database, following a hunch that Patricia Lopez's warning had planted in my brain like a splinter. I'd started simple, just searching for any recent business registrations involving the name Whitmore. What I discovered made me set down my coffee and lean closer to the computer screen. Whitmore Construction LLC, formed 6 months ago, listed Brenda Whitmore as 40% owner and her husband Richard as president. The timeline made my skin crawl. Company formation in May, first HOA maintenance contract bid in July, harassment campaign against me beginning in early September. The dots connected themselves with surgical precision that I spent the next 2 hours diving deeper into public records, and what I discovered would have made a forensic accountant weep with joy. Over the past 4 months, Whitmore Construction had been awarded 7 different maintenance contracts by our HOA board: landscape edging, sidewalk repairs, community center touch-ups, playground maintenance, $23 for 100 in total work. The bidding patterns told the real story. On every single contract, Whitmore Construction had underbid the competition by exactly $50 to $100. Not enough to seem suspicious, but just enough to guarantee selection. It was like watching someone play poker with marked cards. Technically legal moves, but obviously rigged. Here's what really made my electrician's brain click into overdrive. Brenda had voted to approve every single one of those contracts. 7 votes, 7 approvals, 7 payouts to her family business. The conflict of interest was so blatant it practically had neon signs around it that I recalled reading about fiduciary duty violations during my earlier legal research. Board members are required to disclose any financial interests in vendor contracts. Failure to do so violates state nonprofit corporation law and opens the door to both civil lawsuits and criminal fraud charges. The evidence was sitting right there in digital black and white. Business registration documents, HOA meeting minutes, contract award records, bank deposit slips from the association's monthly statements. Brenda had been using her board position to funnel community dues directly into her family's bank account. My response was courteous but firm. No private property access without a court order or genuine emergency. If they wanted to inspect my legally compliant trash receptacle, they could examine it from the public sidewalk like everyone else. The scent of Brenda's frustration was almost as satisfying as fresh concrete. Meanwhile, her vehicle was becoming a rolling advertisement for the durability of steel-reinforced concrete. Each morning brought new collision attempts, and each attempt left fresh damage on her Escalade. The running board now hung at an angle like a broken wing. Her front bumper sported spiderweb cracks, and one headlight housing had developed a concerning rattle. The neighborhood was beginning to notice. During my Saturday morning coffee run, I overheard 3 different conversations about that crazy woman who keeps hitting the same trash can. Mrs. Rodriguez had begun timing Brenda's morning routine, while the teenage kids on Elm Street had apparently started a betting pool on daily collision outcomes. Emma found the whole situation simultaneously amusing and embarrassing. "Dad, kids at school are asking if we're the family with the concrete can lady," she told me over dinner. I don't know whether to hide or take credit for having the coolest revenge story in the district. Tyler, ever practical, wanted to know if we could sell tickets to the morning entertainment. "Seriously, Dad, we could charge $5 and fund my college education just from neighbors wanting front row seats to the demolition derby." The real breakthrough came when Patricia Lopez, the only reasonable board member, pulled me aside after a neighborhood gathering. In hushed tones near the community center's coffee station, she shared intelligence that changed everything. "Marcus, you need to know, Brenda's been having private meetings with Gerald about enhanced enforcement authority. She wants the board to authorize property inspections, material restrictions, even contractor background checks for homeowner projects." But Patricia's biggest revelation was financial. She's also been pushing hard for approval of maintenance contracts with some company I've never heard of. Every time we discuss the budget, she has these detailed proposals ready, like she's been planning for months. That night, I began a different type of investigation. If Brenda was this obsessed with controlling neighborhood projects and pushing specific contractors, maybe her motivation wasn't just power. Maybe it was profit. Public records are amazing things when you know where to look, and municipal contract databases tell interesting stories about who gets paid for what. By Sunday evening, I'd uncovered something that made her trash can obsession look like small potatoes. Brenda Whitmore wasn't just a control freak with too much time on her hands. She was operating a scam, and my concrete fortress had accidentally threatened her entire operation. Over the next week, Brenda made increasingly desperate attempts to damage my concrete creation. Each collision left new scratches and dents on her pearl white Escalade, while my can remained smugly intact. The irony was delicious. Her own aggressive behavior was destroying the very vehicle she used as a weapon. By Friday, her SUV showed nearly $800 in accumulated damage. Mine showed a few scuff marks that made it appear more authentic. The neighborhood was beginning to talk, and for once, Brenda wasn't controlling the narrative. By mid-November, Brenda had transformed from neighborhood busybody into full-blown private investigator. The woman was so obsessed with my trash can that she'd probably dreamed about it in flowcharts and conspiracy theories. I'd catch glimpses of her pearl white Escalade, now sporting a growing collection of dents and scratches, cruising past my house at odd hours like some suburban stalker. The first indication of her detective work arrived on a Tuesday morning when Mrs. Olivia called, her voice barely audible. "Marcus, that woman was in your driveway last night with a flashlight and some type of scale. I observed from my bedroom window. She was attempting to weigh your trash can." I had to laugh at the mental image. Brenda, probably in her navy blazer and sensible shoes, sneaking around my property at midnight with a bathroom scale, trying to solve the mystery of the indestructible trash receptacle. The woman needed a hobby that didn't involve trespassing. Her investigation intensified throughout the week. Jim Torres, our maintenance guy, mentioned she'd cornered him at the hardware store, interrogating him about concrete purchases and asking which residents had bought unusual materials recently. She'd even begun stalking my social media accounts, searching for construction hints in my Facebook posts about weekend projects. The development that really demonstrated her desperation came when she tried to weaponize city bureaucracy again. Thursday afternoon, a building inspector knocked on my door, a tired-looking guy named Pete who clearly had better things to do than investigate trash cans. "Ma'am filed a complaint about potential building code violations," he explained, checking boxes on his clipboard with the enthusiasm of someone completing tax forms. "Something about unauthorized concrete structures on residential property." I walked Pete around to the trash can where he spent about 30 seconds examining it before shaking his head. "It's a garbage container, not a foundation. No permits required, no violations present. Honestly, I've seen people construct entire sheds without this much scrutiny." But Brenda wasn't finished with her official harassment campaign. The following week brought a notice from the HOA demanding immediate access for compliance verification of my property. The letter, obviously drafted by Brenda and rubber-stamped by President Thornfield, claimed they needed to inspect my exterior modifications for safety violations. This is where my research into property rights proved useful. I'd spent hours reading about Fourth Amendment protections and HOA authority limitations after that first violation notice. The landmark case was Narstedt versus Lakeside Village, where courts ruled that HOAs can't conduct fishing expeditions on private property without specific cause or emergency circumstances. While Brenda was playing regulation prosecutor, I was having coffee with Dale Kowalski at Home Depot's contractor desk. Dale's been pouring concrete for 23 years, and when I mentioned my trash can troubles, his weathered face broke into a knowing grin. "You know," he said, stirring sugar into his coffee with a paint stir stick, "there's nothing in city code regarding what materials you can use for trash containers. Plastic, metal, concrete. As long as it holds garbage and meets the size requirements, you're fine." That conversation planted a seed that would become Brenda's worst nightmare. 60 pounds of concrete mix, steel rebar for reinforcement, and a clever modification to a standard plastic shell. Total cost, $47 versus the $350 I was facing in mounting fines and replacement cans. But first, I needed to address her harassment campaign. I spent Tuesday evening creating comprehensive photo documentation of every comparable violation in our neighborhood. Wednesday morning, I filed a formal complaint with the HOA board regarding selective and discriminatory enforcement patterns. Here's something I learned from handling electrical permits for 2 decades. Bureaucrats dislike when you use their own systems against them. My complaint forced the board to either enforce rules equally across all properties or acknowledge they were targeting me specifically. Neither option favored Brenda. The real revelation came when I began analyzing the demographics of her violation targets. Over the past year, Brenda had issued 67 violation notices. 49 went to single parents, elderly residents, or minorities, while only 18 targeted married couples or longtime homeowners. The pattern was so evident it practically screamed lawsuit that I remembered reading about Fair Housing Act violations. Property management discrimination and HOA enforcement can trigger federal investigations. The thought of Brenda explaining her citation patterns to a civil rights attorney made me smile for the first time in weeks. Friday afternoon, I began my weekend concrete project. Emma and Tyler thought it was amusing, helping me mix cement in the garage while classic rock played on my paint-splattered radio. The smell of setting concrete evoked memories of helping my dad pour our basement floor 30 years ago. That distinctive alkaline scent indicating something permanent was being constructed. The engineering was straightforward but effective. Hollow bottom section for weight distribution, drainage holes maintained for functionality, exterior appearance identical to every other trash can on the block. From the outside, it appeared completely normal. Inside, 60 pounds of steel-reinforced concrete waited to teach Brenda a physics lesson about immovable objects. Monday morning, I positioned my newly reinforced trash can in precisely the same location as always. 6:15 arrived right on schedule along with the rumble of Brenda's oversized engine. But this time, something was different. Her approach was slower, more cautious. She'd clearly noticed the can looked identical, but somehow felt suspicious. The first collision occurred at approximately 15 miles per hour. her usual ramming speed. The sound was completely different. Instead of that sickening crunch of breaking plastic, there was a solid thunk followed by the screech of metal on concrete. Her Escalade's running board bent like aluminum foil while my trash can sat there looking mildly offended that I observed through my kitchen window, coffee mug warm against my palms as Brenda sat in her SUV for a full 30 seconds, clearly confused by what had just occurred. She revved the engine and attempted again from a different angle. Same result, more damage to her vehicle, zero damage to my concrete fortress. The beauty of the entire setup was its complete legality. No city ordinances violated, no HOA rules broken, just a homeowner upgrading his trash receptacle with better materials. If she wanted to continue ramming it, that was her choice and her insurance claim to file. Professional detective work. This was not, Marcus, Dave chuckled over the phone. Either your neighborhood has an epidemic of insomniacs with identical writing styles, or somebody's working overtime constructing a case against you. By Thursday's board meeting, I'd assembled a folder substantial enough to choke a horse. The community center smelled like industrial carpet cleaner and decades of tedious municipal meetings. 12 homeowners appeared, a record crowd that had President Thornfield nervously adjusting his tie every 30 seconds. Brenda sat at the board table wearing a navy blazer that screamed, "I mean business," but I noticed the slight tremor in her hands when she reached for her water glass. She understood what was approaching. When they requested old business, I stood with my documentation. I'd like to address the violation notice concerning trash can placement. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead as the room fell completely silent. I read the city ordinance verbatim, displayed my survey results demonstrating perfect compliance. The finishing touch was casually mentioning my consultation with Amanda Sterling, a property rights attorney who'd handled numerous HOA cases. She found the selective enforcement patterns especially interesting. I added, observing Brenda's face turn pale. President Thornfield cleared his throat 3 times before speaking. Well, this necessitates further review. We'll postpone this matter pending additional consideration. Translation: they had nothing and everyone recognized it, but Brenda wasn't finished. As we departed, she trapped me in the parking lot beneath the buzzing security lights. This is where she truly revealed her character. "You think you're so clever?" she hissed loudly enough for the dozen homeowners still conversing nearby to hear every word. "People like you enter decent neighborhoods and believe rules don't apply. Well, I have information for you. This is merely the beginning." Mrs. Rodriguez from Maple Street actually gasped. Jim Torres, our maintenance worker, suddenly found his keys fascinating. The racial implications hung in the humid October air like smoke from a house fire, obvious to everyone present. My phone, positioned casually in my shirt pocket, recorded every venomous syllable. That evening, Emma asked why the mean woman hated us so intensely. Tyler wanted to understand if we'd need to relocate again. I tucked them into bed, assuring everything would resolve itself. But privately, I was calculating the cost of this conflict. 3 replacement trash cans, 14 hours of documentation, attorney consultation fees accumulating. But something had transformed in the community. Other homeowners were murmuring about board overreach and asking uncomfortable questions about selective enforcement. Brenda's parking lot breakdown had exposed what many suspected. This wasn't about traffic safety or community standards. It was about power, control, and putting people she didn't like in their place. The following morning brought a revealing change. Instead of her typical aggressive ramming approach, Brenda drove past my trash can at crawling speed, examining it like a general planning her next assault. The pattern was evolving, which indicated bigger trouble was approaching. November arrived at Pinewood Gardens like a cold slap to the face, and Brenda retaliated even harder. While I was congratulating myself on winning the first round, she was busy weaponizing every obscure HOA regulation she could discover. The woman had apparently spent weeks examining our community guidelines like a prosecutor constructing a RICO case. The assault arrived in waves. First, a violation notice regarding my grass height. Apparently 2.75 inches exceeded the 2.5-inch maximum by a criminal quarter-inch. Then my mailbox color, which had faded from heritage blue to what she classified as unauthorized weathered navy. Finally, 3 tiny tears in my window screens requiring a magnifying glass to detect. Each violation carried a $50 fine with 10-day payment deadlines. The twist: I spent an entire Saturday afternoon walking the neighborhood with a measuring tape and camera, documenting identical violations on 14 other properties. Gerald Thornfield's grass was approaching 3 inches. Mrs. Patterson's mailbox had faded to approximately the same shade as mine. Half the houses on Maple Street had screen damage from the summer hailstorm. But somehow only my violations warranted official attention. Mrs. Olivia, my elderly neighbor living across the street, validated what I suspected. She takes the long route deliberately. She informed me in her careful English. There's plenty of space on the other side, but she drives near your can every time. I attempted reasoning with Brenda initially. I caught her on the sidewalk during one of her afternoon patrols. Hey, regarding the trash can situation. But she interrupted me with this sugary smile. Marcus, I realize you're unfamiliar with community living. These roads were constructed for normal-sized vehicles, not oversized containers obstructing traffic flow. Perhaps you should consider adjustments to placement timing. Placement timing adjustments, as if there's some magical time when the garbage truck doesn't require the can at the curb. That evening, I began investigating property rights, HOA regulations, and municipal codes. As it turns out, trash cans positioned on public right-of-way still represent personal property. More significantly, our HOA lacks specific regulations about placement timing or materials, only that they can't be visible from the street except on collection day. By month's end, I'd replaced 4 trash cans totaling $92. The children were becoming anxious about the daily conflict, and my custody evaluator was documenting neighborhood stability concerns. Something needed to change. That's when the smirking began. Brenda started making direct eye contact during her morning destruction runs. This small, satisfied smile indicating she knew precisely what she was doing. Game on point. 2 weeks into October, Brenda escalated from destroying property to psychological warfare. I returned home from a job site to discover a certified letter waiting, the type that makes your stomach sink before you even open it. The thick paper felt expensive in my fingers, and the fresh printer ink smell indicated this wasn't some standard form she'd been holding on to. Improper trash receptacle placement creating traffic hazard. It stated in official legal terminology that would impress a paralegal. Section 4.7.3. No obstruction of vehicular traffic patterns. The deadline, 72 hours to correct the violation or face $50 daily fines. She'd clearly rushed this through the system while the board was still recovering from my documentation at the previous meeting. This is where my years troubleshooting electrical codes became valuable. When something doesn't make sense, you investigate deeper. That evening, I examined municipal law like I was tracking down a short circuit. After 3 hours cross-referencing city codes with county regulations, I discovered the key information. City code explicitly mandates trash placement within 3 feet of the curb on collection day. More importantly, HOA authority ends at the property boundary. They literally cannot regulate public right-of-way. That I recalled reading about a comparable case online where a California homeowner defeated their HOA using this precise argument. I spent the weekend constructing my defense like I was preparing for the electrical contractor's examination again. Ring doorbell camera positioned perfectly to document the morning routine, $47 for peace of mind. Professional survey verifying my placement met all city requirements. Even persuaded Mrs. Olivia to supply a written statement, though her hands trembled slightly as she signed it. I don't want problems, she whispered. But this isn't correct. Meanwhile, Brenda was actively playing social media prosecutor. She inundated the Nextdoor app with posts about careless homeowners endangering children and hazardous corner obstacles forcing responsible drivers into opposite traffic. The comments section transformed into a battleground between her 3 devoted supporters and everyone else who believed she'd completely lost touch with reality. Then arrived the development that revealed just how desperate she was becoming. A friend at City Hall, Dave works in the permit office, we've done electrical work together, contacted me Tuesday morning with intriguing information. The city had received 4 separate complaints regarding my dangerous corner, each purporting different witness perspectives, but clearly written by the same individual. The timestamp indicated them all submitted within 15 minutes at 2:47 a.m. A neighbor in my HOA destroyed my garbage bin 57 times using her expensive Escalade, leading me to replace it with one made of concrete. I then observed as she wrecked her own vehicle. What began as morning destruction of property concluded with legal charges, a settlement of $12,000, and an expensive lesson about choosing the wrong person to harass. Imagine this scenario. The distinct sound of plastic breaking cuts through the quiet dawn. Then comes the grinding noise of a bumper scraping pavement as a white Escalade races off, scattering my refuse like confetti across my driveway once more. However, bullies typically don't anticipate their targets retaliating with literal concrete proof. Before I finished, this woman who'd appointed herself as the compliance officer had wrecked her own car, revealed a $47,000 theft operation, and discovered that certain neighbors won't be bullied by clipboards and false authority. Honestly, how would you respond if your neighbor was essentially playing demolition derby with your belongings each morning? Leave a comment and tell me your location. I'm curious if this type of HOA chaos is occurring in your area as well. Let me rewind and explain how this entire situation began. I'm Marcus Holloway, 45 years old, and I've worked as an electrician for 22 years. Recently separated, fighting for shared custody of my two teenage children, Emma, 16, and Tyler, 14. Our home is in Pinewood Gardens, one of those uniform HOA communities in suburban Ohio, where grass must be maintained at exactly 2.5 inches and mailboxes are limited to 3 approved colors. 3 years ago, following my divorce finalization, I purchased the corner lot house. I thought it would represent a new beginning. The children would have separate bedrooms, good schools, and a safe community. What I didn't expect was confronting Brenda Whitmore, a 52-year-old widow who designated herself the neighborhood's compliance officer, a role that isn't actually included in our HOA regulations. Incidentally, Brenda operates a pearl white Escalade larger than some small apartments. About 3 years ago, after her husband's death, she relocated here, childless and retired from her position managing a downtown bank. This woman has memorized every HOA regulation and treats our monthly payments like her personal fund. She's friends with Gerald Thornfield, the HOA president, which essentially makes her untouchable. Now, geography becomes significant here. Being on a corner lot means trash collection requires me to position my bin near the road every Tuesday morning. Municipal code specifies within 3 feet of the curb, which places it exactly where Brenda takes her daily power walk at precisely 6:15 a.m. The initial incident occurred on a Tuesday in September during the second week of school. I'm preparing the children, coffee brewing, with the familiar diesel sound of the garbage truck still 20 minutes distant. Then came the crack, the sound of plastic exploding like a gunshot. I hurried outside to discover my trash can demolished, garbage spread across my driveway like someone detonated a confetti bomb filled with banana peels and coffee grounds. There's Brenda reversing her Escalade, lowering her window with this fake concerned look. "Oh dear," she says, without any genuine concern in her tone. "These roads are simply so narrow. I hope you weren't too fond of that old thing." Old thing? I'd purchased it just the previous week for $23 at Home Depot, but I remained calm. I assumed it was accidental, spent 20 minutes collecting soggy cereal boxes and coffee filters while diesel exhaust smell lingered in the morning air. Emma and Tyler observed from the front window, embarrassed their father was crawling around the driveway in his sleepwear. During that first week, it occurred 3 additional times. Same pattern, 6:15 exactly, that rumble of her oversized engine, the nauseating crunch of plastic meeting steel, then quiet as she drove away. By Friday, suspicion was growing. By the next Tuesday, I was certain it was deliberate,